Yes. Welcome everybody, officers and councillors, members of the public, I think, to this meeting of the Stratford and Resources Committee. I'm afraid you're having to have me as chair because for some reason Councillor Room is otherwise engaged. And thank you to Barnstaple Library for letting us use this room as well. Quick reminders, mobile phones, if you just come in, can you make sure they switch to silent? There are members of the public press attending this meeting virtually, so Councillor Milton is attending virtually. Can you make sure you switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting? It's being recorded and will be available in due course on the Council's YouTube channel. A reminder for councillors, those attending virtually and in person can hear the proceedings. And for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. No fire alarm planned, therefore if the fire alarm sounds, officers will direct you to the nearest exit from the meeting room onto the... Okay, so let's start. First item, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Room and Wilson, and Councillor Milton, as you said, is joining virtually, so he'll be unable to vote on any item.
And
Okay.
Chair, I've got one other that is Councillor, did you say Wilkinson?
Yes.
Yeah, so I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
Okay, any other apologies? Item 2, the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of May 2024. Anybody got any comments? Anybody propose those as a
Like to propose those?
Caroline Lever, seconded by Councillor Masco. Item 3, now this is,
I'll abstain.
sorry, we didn't vote.
You need to vote and I'll abstain when you do vote.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
can we, all those in favour of the minutes? All those against? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Item 3, some very good news. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Prowse to tell us the good news.
Thank you, Chair. Those of us that have been on the council for the last 5 or 6 years will know the saga about the water sports centre in Ilfracombe. I think many people got a bit pessimistic about it. A lot of people did go dig their heels in and go for the distance, and it's become worthwhile over this last weekend. I'm very pleased that today, this morning, we've got some key people that are involved in the project here with us this morning, because the Larksden Water Sports Hub has just won the Mitchell Mills Property Award for the year. I think it was Thursday night, to see them all in dinner suits and nice dresses, and
Helen's got the award.
Helen's got the award here. Can I just say a few things about it, because we started off with a scheme that ran about £1 million. We then did some more work on the figures and realised that wasn't going to quite cut it. I'm looking at John Triggs has been really supportive of this project throughout as well. Everybody always bemoans accountants and say, you know, they're very tight and don't help us very much, but John's been great with this project. Many of us really wanted to hang on to the big scheme in its location. Some people thought that we should cut our cloth and move and do some other sort of solution. But I'm really, really pleased that we've got to this stage. The project in the end cost 3.4 million, which very little of which came from the district council, around about £250,000. I say a little, still a lot of money. A fantastic investment for Ilfracombe that's meant that you've got destinations all the way around the harbour area. So this added the last little piece, I think, to the Ilfracombe experience. I think it's worth mentioning a few of the people that have been involved in it, particularly Pierce Construction, who, being a local firm, that 3.4 million has been sort of recycled in the North Devon economy, which is great. And we're really pleased that they're partnering us in Birkport Street as well. So we're looking after local jobs at the same time as producing great projects. There's a list of people that I want to mention. Grange Architects from Exeter, who designed the project. Hills, Crady's, Hully and Kirkwood, Hot Consulting, Timberless Maritime Services, Aquatonics, and of course, as I mentioned, Pierce Construction. But there's two people here today in particular who I want to say thank you to that have made sure that this project went ahead. SJ as the team leader, but I don't think she would mind me saying that really though the most important person in this project has been Helen Bond. Helen, please. I'd like you to have the chance just to say a few words. Many of us are at the official opening, but I think you with your tenacity have made sure that this project has been delivered. But so can we say thank you to Helen, please? Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you. When I came back to the Devon Council in November 2020, John said, "I've got a job for you, Helen." And I thought, oh my goodness, because it was a job and a half, really.
It was more than a job and a half, I think.
But it's been an incredible learning experience on so many different levels. And the team we brought together, along with John Widgery's support and Sarah Jane's support, has managed to deliver this through many, many challenges. We're so pleased with the level of detail that's gone into this project, which has come down from the design team and Pierce Construction. We've just finished the top of the kiln, which now links onto the balcony of the Wolf Sports Centre. And the key thing for that was we were restricted to 60 covers in the restaurant, which didn't really make it a viable option. But by putting that link in and adding in that extra investment, it means that they can go well over that. It increases their offer. They're looking to do weddings and all sorts of things. So thank you to all your support in helping us deliver it. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on. Unless there's any questions about anybody want to ask about that? No? Good news. Let's celebrate that. Item 4, declarations of interest. Anybody got any interest they want to declare?
I've received none, Chair.
Nothing, okay. Item 5, I don't think there's anything in part B, so we'll move on. We've had a request actually, and this is, I'm not too certain which item it is. Is it item 16? It's
the first urgent decision on the list.
right.
So second.
Second. Right, it's item 16. I'm going to bring that forward. That's on right, everybody, because Lizzie is just for that, and it seems a long time to go through. So it's item 16. Who's speaking on this?
Can I just say a couple of things? Oh, you can.
Ken, do you want to say something and then?
All I'll say, Chair, if I may, is that item 16 is are the details of the urgent decisions that I've taken during the course of the last period, since the last committee meeting. So the decision has been made. They're here to be noted, but I understand Councillor Spear wishes to talk about it.
Councillor Spear?
Briefly,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for description the agenda. I said I've got one or two things I need to do. Firstly, just Derek and I and the parish council, we're involved with this issue before the inception of the declaration of the air quality management area, and also the parish council did quite a lot of monitoring. I was to be seen sometimes up the ladder, changing the tubes. We were doing it ourselves until the parish took it over, and of course the district did theirs as well. We fully understand the legal reasons for this revocation, and we welcome it. It means our pollution rates for nitrogen dioxide have decreased, partly possibly due to the use of more EV cars, we think. And there is a positive step to monitor the whole of North Devon, I believe. At an SNR meeting in October 2020, point 1.3 of the report by the then head of place said, Natural England are recommending minor changes whereby a scale, SCAIL, which is simple calculation of atmospheric impact limits assessment, is required for agricultural development in order to address potential air quality impacts arising from ammonia. This point was included in the readopted supplementary planning document, and will no doubt be carried forward to the new North Devon Torres local plan. Just a couple of little questions, if I may, am I right in saying that the work has already begun on the new strategy for North Devon regarding this? And we will continue to work with Torridge, who came on board in 2020. And also, I see under financial implications, it says there are none. So how will the monitoring continue to take place to inform the new local air quality strategy and report to DEFRA? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions there, Councillor.
Yeah, just in relation to the financial implications, there may well be financial implications of future monitoring, but the report that I was being asked to take a decision on was about revoking the AQMA, which we had a legal duty to do anyway, and there are no financial implications flowing from that revocation. There may well be in terms of the strategy. Councillor Spear, when you talk about the future strategy, you're talking about the air quality strategy, right? Okay. I'll probably need to get back to you on that, but I would imagine that work is starting on that, and when a strategy is developed, then that'll come back to members. But I can confirm that.
So thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Good news, thank you.
Bobby? Anybody else wants to speak on this while we're here? Believer?
Just very, very quickly, I know that both councillors, Spear and previous councillor Spear had worked, and others had worked really hard over a long, long period of time to make this happen in the first place. And it's really good news that things, not only what you've achieved in the past, but actually that things have moved forward to where we. So I just wanted to thank you for your hard work on this matter.
Anything else? Yeah. You, Councillor Spear. Do you want to stay for a bit, or are you?
And we did not hit.
You can get that
I think.
See you on Thursday.
Something like that.
I don't know. Okay, let's move on to
Those decisions.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were going to go back to the whole thing. Yeah. Can we note those recommendations, those decisions that were taken?
Yep.
Agree.
In favour, yes?
Yeah.
Anybody
Thank you
against?
so much.
Okay, going back to item 6, this is performance and financial management. I've asked officers if we can perhaps restrict the spiel at the start, give a salient points, and then we do floor open to any questions, please. So, John, if you can.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll pass over to Tony Rumble, Finance Manager, to present this one for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm here to present the highlights of the Q4 outturn performance report. The recommendations are detailed in your report in 2.1 to 2.6 on page 11. Firstly, our revenue budget position. The 23-24 budget was approved at full council at 14.766 million. As at the 31st of March 24, it was pleasing to report the final outcomes of budget surplus of 630,000. A detailed breakdown of these movements was shown in Appendix A on pages 37 to 38. The 557,000 favourable movement from Q3 mainly attributed to adverse variances of 89,000 reduction in car park charges, 191,000 premises additional electricity cost, 132,000 planning fee income. And then we've got additional external audit fees of 81,000, additional insurance premiums of 70,000, and transfer of public conveniences additional costs of 75,000 compared to budget. And then we have some favourable variances of works and recycling, transportation 66,000, temporary accommodation costs 54,000, building control partnership 46,000, additional crematorium income 41,000, additional grant income of 57,000. Interest receivable and payable a net 91,000, business rate income 760,000, and then a contribution from the community housing reserve 52,000. So from the budget surplus of 630,000, it's proposed to set aside this amount into some earmarked reserves, 150,000 to the corporate property income volatility reserve, 280,000 into the insurance reserve to mitigate higher costs in 24-25. And 200,000 into the digital transformation reserve. The business rates reserve includes a £1.2 million balance that will be utilised in 24-25 and 25-26 to mitigate against the timing differences of the business rate reliefs awarded in 23-24. But from an accounting perspective, is impacted over the next 2 financial years. This leaves a balance in that reserve of 544,000 protection against future volatility. The Green Lanes trading account for 23-24 produced a net return of £237,000. This includes 150,000 from the income volatility reserve due to the financial impact of losing Wilco's in August 23. Previous year's surpluses were 291,000 for 22-23 and 244,000 for 21-22. At the year end, the external borrowing remained at 3 million, mainly due to slippages in the capital programme and utilising internal cash flow balances. Moving on to capital, the 23-24 programme is attached in Appendix B, pages 23 to 26. The actual spend for 23-24 was 10.146 million, resulting in a carry forward of 2.528 million to 24-25. The 24-25 budget, including this carry forward now, is 22.787 million. There were further variations of 1.828 million proposed to the 24-25 programme and 1.212 million proposed to the 25-26 and 26-27 capital programme. And these are detailed in 4.4.8 of your report on page 15. All these changes take the revised capital programme in total now to 30.895 million, and these can be found in Appendix E. Release of funds can be seen in 4.4.13 of your pack. And then we've got Treasury Management, Debt Management, and General Debtors. These are detailed in 4.5 to 4.7. We've also got Appendix F, which sets out our 5 programmes and projects sitting underneath them, with updates on progress to date. Nina is here, and she's going to give you just a brief update on the headline information. And then following Nina's bits, we'll be happy to take any questions in both areas.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So this element of the report sets out the progress being made within your 5 programmes supporting the delivery of your corporate plan. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to digest some of the content, but I've got colleagues around the room or myself who will happily try and clarify any questions you may have. Page 40 starts with the Housing and Community Safety Programme. That's led by myself. Just a few highlights in relation to that. We've prepared 3 bids for the combined County Authorities Net Zero Capital Programme, 2 of which will pass through the gateway to be taken to DLUC. These were for the Healthy Homes in Ilfracombe and some money to help with our pipeline of CLT projects, looking at a sum of just under £3 million. That fund has been paused at the moment due to the election. Just in relation to households in temporary accommodation, this remains high in numbers, with the teams working hard to find solutions. We celebrated National Refugee Week, and on one of those days we invited in our Ukraine and Afghanistan residents to share with us some of their national food dishes, and our staff keep saying this event was also supported by the Pickwell Foundation and other voluntary groups. We also put in an expression of interest for round 3 with the local authority housing fund to purchase another additional 4 houses. Again, with Parliament being dissolved, that's on pause also. In relation to the housing strategies, that's going to be aligned with our commercialisation and our asset management strategy and come back to the committee in the autumn this year. A nice bit of positive news, the Community Safety Partnership bid was submitted to the Police and Crime Commissioner for their antisocial behaviour hotspot funding. Barnstaple fall into Tier 1, which will deliver extra police patrols and partnership patrols, i.e. our street marshals. In Barnstaple, they're patrolling the general area and also focusing on the High Street, Queen Street and Library Square. And this has allowed us to fund 2 further days to provide a provision in Ilfracombe also. The Community Safety Partnership have also supported the reintroduction of the night bus following a successful trial in the winter. This will now run from Barnstaple to Bideford and back, and an additional route's been added in, running to Ilfracombe also during those summer months. In terms of page 48, Regeneration and Economic Growth Programme, which is led by Mrs. Sarah Jane Mackenzie Shapland. We've seen a range of cultural activities totaling over 7,000 people being involved in those events. We await a decision on when the local plan review will come forward. Again, that's in government's hands. Councillor Prowse has referenced this morning the wonderful accolades that the Water Sports Centre have come forward, but it should also be noted that the Pannier Market was shortlisted as well in the heritage category. Works have commenced on Boutport Street, now Alexandra Road, Queen Street and Bear Street car parks. And again, Councillor Prowse referenced these with Pearson Construction being our main contractor. The Seafront Play Area in Ilfracombe was formally opened in March, and monies continue to be spent from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Following, and you will have heard a comprehensive update to members at council. There's also some other items on the agenda today, which colleagues around the room will be covering in relation to that programme. Page 57 focuses on customer focus, led by Mrs. Sarah Higgins. The team continue to collate value and failure calls, and those are going to be used to drive forward improvement programmes. 1,500 residents have signed up to the revenue and benefits portal, allowing them to self-serve. Our new town centre hub going into Green Lanes, those plans have now been agreed and will be going out to tender. And the ICT team continually work on cyber security measures, just to make sure that we're not clicking on links, or at least we're having the education to make sure that we're being safe and saving our network from any risks. Training in regards to that continues to be rolled out to staff, and I believe it's going to be rolled out to members also. Page 62 touches on the environmental enhancement programme led by Mr. Mark Pentown. Deer Valley Woodland won the community woodland category of the Forestry Commission's Devon Woodland competition, easy for me to say. Specification is being prepared for solar at Brinsworthy. We're looking at a larger array. Ilfracombe Swimming Pool has been awarded £85,000 of Sport England funds to install solar and LED lights. The park team will be moving to their fleet to 2 electric vehicles. North Devon Council and Torridge have been awarded £100,000 to support the production of a green hydrogen roadmap for Northern Devon. And the major infrastructure works down in our works and recycling hall have commenced. Mr. Pentel is here today to give you more of an update on that major infrastructure project. And in terms of our organisational development programme on 67 run by Mrs. Nick Gordon, the team will continue to focus on succession planning and single points of failure. We've secured a leadership graduate by the local government association scheme and continue to work on our pathways to planning, and interviews are being taking place on these. And final bit of news, this Saturday just gone, Unison and the senior management team funded a staff party to thank all the staff and families for all of their hard work and loyalty to the organisation.
Okay. Good to say anything now, Mark, or?
I think we're on the agenda.
On the agenda, right. Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Anybody got any questions? Councillor Les.
I'd like to ask 1 or 2 questions, or if I can understand what I wrote, of course. And it also give Nina like a breather from what you just said as well, which would be helpful. Page 13, 4.17, year 23-24, 237,000, which 150,000 from the income volatility reserve, which means that you only received 87,000 in income for Green Lanes during that year. I'm just wondering, does the figures include car park charges? I see I asked some of this with Tony in here. Right. Does the figures include car park charges? And how does this authority see improvements in the revenue income? And are you letting more vacant units, and then also management costs? So I'm just wondering, how are you gonna make up for more income from Green Lanes going forward, because it seems to be dropping off?
Yep. Before you answer, John, as well. Anybody
That's one question.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say how you said it then, Councillor, is excellent, because you specifically referred to what you wanted to get on the.
It makes a point, but I've got one.
Do that, please. Page number and also
But
particular.
I've just got some concerns about the income.
Come back to you after, Councillor.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Lane. So
members will recall when we approved the acquisition of Green Lanes, obviously there is a financial consideration sitting behind it, but the key driver was run around town centre improvement, regeneration, making sure we can fill the centre up with retailers that obviously provide that wider coverage in the centre. So when we budgeted obviously for the centre, as you can see from the previous 2 years financial position, we were budgeting somewhere between around £250,000 worth of net return. That's after borrowing costs. That's after all of the service charges for the centre. That's after any vacant unit provision. And that also includes car park income. That also includes the borrowing costs having been taken off as well. What we unfortunately saw in 23-24 was the loss of a major retailer, Wilco, who went into administration. So that obviously has an impact because obviously we lose the income in essence from the day of them going into administration, which was August 23. Fortunately, Helen and the team worked very closely with Praxis, and we managed to get a new tenant into that large unit pretty quickly. But obviously the terms under that arrangement meant there's a period of rent-free for the new retailer coming in. So that has a financial impact in 23-24, but fortunately it means that the financial improvement then will be seen through 24-25 when the rent then starts coming through. But more importantly, it's the protection of the service charge of that unit and the empty business rates that we would have picked up as landlord. So there's a timely impact in 23-24 where we've had to take that hit. But moving forwards, we're protected because that large unit is now being filled by Poundland. When members approved Green Lanes, what we did say was that we would reinvest some of the additional monies in the first couple of years into an income volatility reserve, purely for that type of thing that potentially could happen. It was to protect the budget. So sadly, we obviously saw the loss of a major retailer that had an impact of around about 140,000 last year compared to what we budgeted. But we are funding that through that income volatility reserve, which was there to smooth that impact. So that's why we've taken a short-term hit. But the important thing is we've got the protection in the budget moving forwards.
Thank you. I do note that you put some more money into the volatility budget to safeguard the short loss.
Proposing as part of this report then is obviously putting money back in to replenish that reserve to protect the budget moving forwards again.
Okay. As long as it's not ongoing, you understand what I'm saying, but I get that.
It's a one-off.
Thank you. Can I ask the next question?
Yeah, next question.
4.18, just below it, highlights 1.79 million in the collection fund. Safeguard revenue budget is not unduly affected in the year. I note 1.246 million balance to utilise for 24-25 and 25-26. I'm just wondering, because you've been talking about 2 years there, but before for 1.78 million, 1.79 million is over a 12-month period. And also because you've only got 544,000 protection against volatility, I'm just wondering, has this authority got enough security there for going forward? That's all.
So that reserve chair is set up purely for those timing differences. So obviously when we set the budget in February, we estimate the level of business rates the authority will receive. What then happens is the government will make announcements around maybe additional relief that might be given to businesses. That has an impact in that year in terms of it impacts the bottom line from those extra reliefs given. The government give us additional grant for that. So we get a credit in the year that we obviously gave the relief. But because the accounting arrangements mean that it takes a couple of years for those reliefs to then unwind, that's why we have a sort of 2-year smoothing effect to make sure the budget's not unduly affected. So the reason we have this collection fund reserve is when we receive the grant from government to pay for those reliefs, we put that grant into the reserve. And then when the reliefs are, in a sense, the accounting entries are undone to pay for those over the next 2 financial years, we release the money from that reserve. So even though we're releasing £1.2 million over 24 and 25 over those 2 financial years, that still leaves us with an additional £500,000 worth of protection. If then there's further reliefs given this year and we get more money then from government as well, we'll top that reserve back up again. So in a sense, we've got an additional £500,000 worth of protection, which is our 40% share of business rates. So it gives us about £1.2 million additional protection over and above what we budgeted. So more than comfortable, that's enough to give us additional comfort.
So it's good safeguards there. I will add one more question if you don't mind, Chairman. On page 26, temporary accommodation. The original budget 23-24, 3.6 million. Actual spend was 2.48 million, which is quite good. Well, not good really, but anyhow, 23-24. How much of the actual cost how much of the actual cost is a saving through this authority's own properties, because we've got our own properties now? And what cost does it cost this authority out of our budget?
So the table you were referring to in Appendix B is the capital programme.
Yeah.
That's the capital cost of buying the temporary accommodation houses. That's where members have approved the acquisition of our own property plus the acquisition of those through the local authority housing fund. So as you quite rightly alluded to, £2.5 million spend against £3.6 million is actually positive, because it shows we're delivering against those budget provisions that we put in place. That's the capital purchase of the properties. The revenue implication then is separate to this.
Yeah.
So that's the buying of the properties. The table in Appendix A, which is on Appendix 1, page 37, then refers to the additional impact on the budget. As Nina referred to earlier, the increase in volume of people presenting temporary accommodation has gone up. So we've seen an additional cost on our budget in 23-24. You can see from that table about halfway down an additional 185,000 over and above our current net cost on temporary accommodation, which I can't recall the exact number, but we budget for that annually. We are fortunate enough that we put some money away in reserves to help fund that, and we've got some additional grant funding. So the impact in the revenue budget in 23-24 was actually cost neutral due to getting additional grant funding and using our own reserve. We have protected the revenue budget moving forwards. In Appendix 2, which are your list of reserves, you've got two reserves in there. One is a flexible homelessness support grant reserve, which has got a balance of 160,000, and one is a temporary accommodation reserve, which is a new one we've set up in 23-24 with an additional 124,000 in. So there's about £300,000 worth of additional protection on the revenue budget by having those reserves. So even though the numbers have gone up, we're protecting it through the grant and the reserve, but those numbers would have been significantly higher had we not bought our own properties, because the benefit of that means that we're not paying high cost of bed and breakfast accommodation. So it's finding that balance in terms of making sure we've got enough properties to house the provision and we're getting the revenue benefit from that. But we've also got the wider protection of having those reserves moving forwards for any increases in the current financial year.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for your response to him.
Okay, Joe, can I just mention two things? First of all, I wanted to welcome something which was a reduction in income, strangely enough, and that's a reduction in parking fines. Because the reputational damage, not just to local people, but to holiday makers in these hefty fines is something that, you know, we all regret. And I think that that's really probably because we're more flexible now about, you know, less than an hour for, you know, we can do the half an hour. More and more people are using Ringo, which people find really, really good. I just think that's something to welcome. But what I wanted to really highlight in here that's wasn't mentioned, it's not a criticism, Nina, but I just wanted to ask Sarah Jane, and I suppose I ought to declare an interest as a trustee of the Bridge Trust first, is about the cultural plan, because that's gone under the radar the last couple of months. But I understand that things are still on target, timescale wise. And it is a fantastic, I mean, it's on page 55 of the report. A long-term problem with Bridge Chambers, a building we desperately find a new use for as a trust. And we know Alison's done actually fantastic work to access to capital funding. So I just wanted to make sure that we are on course with that. And I think it's worth noting today at this meeting. Not been mentioned so far.
That's absolutely fine, Chair. Is that?
Yeah.
So the Cultural Development Fund that Malcolm references was a 2.4 million fund. A big part of that was the capital works to Bridge Chambers. They are on track. There is currently a live funding application in for those work. And yeah, all things going well. Trade and then be for Bridge Trust to procure a contractor to carry those works out. Alongside that, there was additional capital for wayfinding. Again, that piece of work is currently out to procurement, and also revenue for events, etc. And Nina mentioned in her progress report about the additional 7,000 people that being involved in cultural activity in the last period, and that's all coming from the additional events of the cultural funding.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I can just add to Councillor Prowse, obviously the Cultural Development Fund capital programme is on page 31, £2.4 million, but £1.6 million of that is planned to be spent this current financial year. So just to back up what Sarah Jane said, obviously it's on track now in terms of the commitment to that capital spend this year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Levy, is it on the same point?
Yes, it is particularly about the cultural
Yeah.
strategy. I just actually want to, again, I'm doing lots of thanking today, but to thank all those involved in this. And of course, this weekend has been the 19th Barnstaple Fringe Theatre Fest. And if anyone in the room hasn't yet experienced that, next year it's already booked. It's the most glorious thing. And actually, one of the things which is particularly pleasing to me is that it feels very much as though the council is working well with other partners and people who are doing things just off their own bat as well. So it feels like places like Bridge Chambers, which is one of the venues in the Fringe Theatre Fest, that actually the work that the council is doing is really supporting what community organisations are doing as well. It feels really positive. So I just wanted to thank all those involved in encouraging that, because I think certainly one of the things that happens as a result of things like the Fringe Theatre Fest, which relies on various different venues, is that people come to North Devon and people come to Barnstaple and they spend their money here. Thank you very much.
No, good point, Councillor Levy, thank you. Ken, did you want to say something about that as well?
Not about the culture, so it's just going back to the point made by Councillor Lane about temporary accommodation.
Okay, yeah.
It's probably useful just to put it in context in the national picture, because other councils are now buying up their own stock to use as temporary accommodation. And one of the most publicised examples where councils have been hit with vastly increased temporary accommodation budgets is in Crawley. So they're a district council with a similar size budget to us. And they're now paying £5.7 million out in temporary accommodation costs. And that's risen from £450,000 in 2019. So they've publicly gone out and said that they're paying £1 in every £3 that the council spends goes to temporary accommodation. And it's for that reason that we've gone out and purchased units to try and guard against that massive increase. So we have seen an increase, but in the context of the national picture, it's less here than the council.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, it's a good point, Ken, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just to add to that context, the actual spend on temporary accommodation was less than £500,000 for this authority last year. So in the grand scheme, when you look at other authorities.
But that's the point I was trying to get to. What is the spend on this authority? Because you're talking about 2.4 million, and in actual fact, there's not so much as that. Yeah.
No.
Because you've got all the other costs attached to it.
Yeah, so that £500,000 obviously is our net cost.
Yeah.
But obviously would have been significantly higher had we not gone out and made those earlier acquisitions that we talked about.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions on item 6? Okay, thank you, John. What's involved in that?
We need a proposer and seconder to.
Yes, we need to, anybody pause the recommendations? Councillor Bell? Seconded by,
It's worth noting, it is a positive report. I think all the minutes.
It is, yeah.
We'll
It is.
say that.
Yeah, it's a good report. Isn't it?
Councillor Lane. Thank you. Item 7, Adam. I get mixed in with all the
Thank you, Chair. This is the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 23-23, which gives members the information on the actual Treasury performance of the year. The table on page 75 of your agenda shows that at the 31st of March 24, the capital financing requirement, which is our underlying need to borrow for capital purposes, was circa 26 million, including our finance lease vehicles. This borrowing need relates largely to the building of the new leisure centre and the purchase of Green Lanes. A further 1.4 million of unfinanced capital expenditure was added to the CFR 23-24. Despite this high borrowing need, external borrowing from the PWLB remained at 3 million for the year. We also had, in relation to our finance lease vehicles, a further 2.8 million of borrowing, which gave a total of 5.8 million for the year. So our CFR was 26 million, our external borrowing was 5.8 million, meaning that our own reserves and cash flows had to fund the gap of 20.2 million, which is our under a borrowing position at the end of the financial year. This reduced borrowing resulted in a saving of 300,000 on our interest payable budget. The average borrowing rate from the PWOB loans was 2.01%. In terms of investments, the total interest received for the year was 577,000. The average rate of return was 4.47% compared to the benchmark rate of 4.96%. However, if we exclude the funds held within our own bank for day-to-day liquidity purposes, the investment yield on our external investments was 5.15% for the year. I'd like to refer members back to the recommendations to section 2 of the report. I can take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Don't look at me.
I'm just going to say, it's worth noting that, you know, being able to borrow from our own funds in effect really reduces the burden on our local taxpayers, and just say thank you for all the hard work that Adam and his team do to make sure that we're in that position. Absolutely, because it does really, you know, if we had to borrow all this straight away, it would impact our council taxpayers, you know, to quite an extent. So good management means that people save money in the end. So really worth noting.
Just add to that, Chair, the money that we have saved last year and the extra interest we've earned on our investments, we have to put the money back into a treasury management reserve. So if we do need to take borrowing at higher rates, we've actually got that added protection as well, that reserve can help fund some of those additional costs.
Two very good reports.
That's coming someone on the top finance.
Anyone move the recommendations, please? Councillor Lever, seconded by Councillor Bell. Thank you, Adam.
Do we need to vote on that? Yeah.
We need to vote on it? Yeah, of course we do. Vote on it. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Councillor Lane doesn't want to vote, so.
I did.
Did you?
You were a bit like the lady on it. You were a bit like Lady on Lane. You don't, you know
Do it on
what?
Thursday, we'll all be good. Item 8.
I don't think it will be.
Stephen?
First National.
Morning, members. Steve is our transport manager, so Steve was on a training course today, so didn't think he'd be able to come along, but he's at the 11th hour managed to make an appearance. So I'll just present the report briefly, and if there's any mechanical questions, please refer those to Steve, because I won't be able to answer it. Like any other technical questions as well that you may have from me or Steve, please ask away. This is really just a report for members to note. Our auditors this year, when they looked at the SFS Special Fleet Services contract, just thought it would be prudent for us to let members know how the contract was performed since we started it back in October 2021. So members will recall that we used to previously purchase all the vehicles directly ourselves and run the in-house workshop up at Prinsworthy. We did have an aging fleet. There was we were quite often disrupted with breakdowns, and we couldn't always get mechanics in our workshop, and the spare parts and the bits and pieces that we needed to keep the fleet running. So that was why we took the decision to go outsource that service, and Special Fleet Services got the contract back in 2021. It's a rolling replacement of our vehicles. Since the contract started, we've replaced 11 of the 12 26-ton refuse vehicles, 19 of our recycling vehicles. That's the Rome-equipped vehicles that are the real workhorses of the fleet. So there were 17 12-tonners that we replaced and 2 7.5-tonners. We actually brought the replacement of the Rome-equipped forward by a year because that actually, they were the ones that were frequently breaking down and probably had the most pressure on them on a day-to-day basis. By bringing the replacement of those vehicles forward, there was an extra capital expense that we saved on the repair of those vehicles. All the new vehicles are on a fixed price repair contract, so that does actually save us quite a bit of money. We also replaced 16 of the smaller vans, 2 of our precinct sweepers, 2 forklifts, and 2 ride-on mowers for the parks team. We've also actually replaced all of the parks fleet. I think that's 7 or 8 vehicles, the parks vans. If you remember, the parks service came back in-house kind of unexpectedly back in 2021. Back in 2020. So we had a year to bridge before the SFS contract started. So we were hiring vehicles through a company called Northgate for 12 months. And then when SFS came in, we replaced those with SFS vehicles. And we just recently swapped out 2 of those for electric vehicles. So that begins the electrification of our smaller fleet vehicles. Since we've introduced the newer vehicles, we've had less breakdowns. Drivers and staff are much happier with the newer vehicles. It's good for staff morale. And the £30,000 saving on overtime is what we were spending on catch-up crews when vehicles were breaking down. So that's it really. It's just to note this report. If there's any questions, myself and Steve.
No, thank you, Mark. I think it's visible to members, actually. I don't know if members would agree with me on this, that there's been a huge improvement, because when I first got on the council, my main issue of concern with residents complaining about the recycling of vehicles, and there's been a markedly bigger improvement in that. So well done to the team. I think this is probably part and parcel of that from what you just said. So all good news again. Questions, Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, I'm meeting with Mark this week anyway, so I'll go through a lot more. 2 things. One, I'm happy with staff morale more than anything, because I think that's really important. You've got happy staff, you've got happy workload. The other thing is, which we can discuss more in our meeting, we've got 2 electric ones. How do you envisage changing everything to electric? Over what timescale?
Okay, that's a good question. At present, I think members will recall when I think it was the last strategy and resources meeting when we voted to replace those 2 vehicles. The larger HGVs, the technology still isn't quite there for us to replace those with electric vehicles. There is, if you're in a smaller, sort of denser populated area that's nice and flat, but for a rural district like ourselves, where we've got getting up the hill back to Brinsworth is a challenge for any electric vehicle that's fully loaded. So I can't give you a timescale on replacing those HGVs. Obviously, we have got a target within the council to be net zero by 2030. So we'll need to have a look at that, because we're not going to do it if we don't deal with the emissions from our fleet. We are speaking to a team down at Exeter University, looking at doing an analysis of the fleet, and rather than us sort of dabbling in different technologies, actually try and get a strategic overview of what the options are for us. And that includes hydrogen. Hydrogen is very, very expensive at the moment. And again, the technology is not quite there for our fleet and our terrain, but we just need to keep looking at it over the next 10 years and see if we can actually transform the fleet completely.
Okay, thank you.
On that, no, sorry. With the replacement of the two alternative fuels, as the vehicles are changing from owned to leased, that's when we're actually looking to see if it is possible to make that vehicle EV or hydrogen. So although there's not a fixed programme, it is being looked at as the newer approaches.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, just to the small fleets at parks is 80 small vans.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the work, it's that they're not going all the time, they're parked up for quite long periods of their work. It's nice and easy to keep on top of the charging. So I'd like to roll out EV replacements of the smaller fleet much faster, because the technology is there, and we can look at the car park schedules as well. But what we agreed at the last resources meeting was we would come back, as these are going to be looking to replace them, not just present the figures to members, because there is a cost, not just in terms of taking out a new lease arrangement with a vehicle, whether it's petrol, diesel or electric.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right.
It would be helpful going forward, of course, to have a full strategy of where you actually are going with EVs and that. And it's from the council point of view that it's fully costed, because then members are fully aware of where we're going and it's costing it to it. There is other ways of going green, of course, besides doing what you're trying to, because that what you're trying to do now is major, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's something that's not happening at the present and probably won't happen for years. But I think, like you suggested, the small fleet is simple, because it's all going green, isn't it?
It's
So,
small
but-
changes where we can.
Yeah, but I think it'd be helpful going forward, of course, the members are aware of the costing of trying to change over, not just thinking, oh, we've got to change over because there's a cost attached to it, which has got a cost to this authority. Thank you.
That's what Ricky now.
Thanks, Martin. I appreciate, of course, we all appreciate that the terrain in Northern Devon renders these the refuse collection extremely difficult for electrification. But I do also note that the 21 route, is it Ilford into Bideford, they intend to replace that with electric buses. Now, that's an 18-hour day, isn't it? Up and down, backwards and forwards. And I presume, not just to disagree with you, but the improvements in battery technology would suggest that electrification comes before hydrogen, you know.
Yeah, and
Well,
I'll be watching that route with interest in selling it on. There's there are other authorities as well. They tend to be sort of the wealthier unitary authorities. At Brighton, an area I'm very, very familiar with. They've just got some electric HGVs there, and that's reasonably hilly terrain. It's not a flat city. So again, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on them and see how.
Well, SFS, they're on side, as it were, with that sort of upgrade for us.
Yeah, we stay on side. Yes, we'll ask them if they can get them for us, and they'll tell us what the cost is. Yeah. But yes, they are. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, recommendation is to note this on the recap proposal. Councillor Lever, seconded by Councillor Masfield. All those in favour of noting this report? Any against? No. Thank you. Item 9, I think, is the verbal report. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so I think like I did on the leisure centre, we had these large capital builds. I'll just come to each strategy and resources committee to give you a verbal update on how the project's going, and hopefully there won't be any major hiccups. We started on site about 3 weeks ago. If you come up to Brinsworthy, you'll note that there's some trenching works going along. As you look down the back of Brinsworthy on the right-hand side, down towards Sanders Yard. So that's for cables and services that are going to supply not only the builder's compound, but also new modular building and offices when they come, and also take some of the electrics down to the new fire suppression system. The other works that have started this week are in the process hall itself. We're cleaning all of the steels up in the ceiling. So that's literally they're using brooms and hoovers, and then they'll be pressure washing those as well, and then doing spot repairs to the steel if any spot repairs are needed. That's the first kind of high level clean we've had up there since we've been based at Brinsworthy, so that's quite a job, as you can imagine. We'll also over the next few weeks be excavating the pits that are for the new conveyor system. So we'll be tipping all of the recyclables into pits that then load on conveyors rather than going into the stillage like they do at the moment. Also, before the end of July, plans for the fast suppression system and the pipe works and the electrics that need to go into the roof void in the process hall that will be installed. And the idea is to get all that work done by the end of July. And then we'll stop work in the process hall because as we go into August, that's our busiest period. So what I didn't want was recycling to be disrupted during the month of August. So works in the process hall will cease. There'll still be other work going on site. And then at the end of August, the modular building will come. That's the new office building. And there'll also be the water tanks going in that supply the fire suppression system. And then all of that work should be finished in December. And then the baler company will start to mobilise and we'll start seeing and bringing the bits and pieces of the baler throughout December, all ready for installation of the new baler in January. And that's a 35-day installation. So they work every day, including weekends, install it, test it, and commission it, and then we take handover. So the project should be, touch wood, complete end of January.
Good news. All on track. Thank you. Any questions on that? Graham? Councillor Dowsett?
Thank you, Chair. That sounds fantastic, really, doesn't it? You're not expecting any disruption to service during August, which of course, will there be any likelihood of any disruption across the area? Because as we were just saying, people are very, very pleased with the collections, and that's fantastic. Are we likely to see a problem that we perhaps want to be aware of, or at least to inform the thing?
I really don't want to curse it and Murray Water. So far, so good. And obviously, we are in a busy month now. Collections are heavy, and every Monday I'm sat there looking at some emails, and so the pressure is on. I can't say there won't be any disruption. I mean, the old baler broke down at least twice last week. And that kind of is quite good because it reminds me why we're doing this project. It's a nice timing reminder. So we've got lots of contingency in place. Worst case scenario is something does happen and we can't recycle or bale up at Brinsworthy. So we've kind of got some extra spaces that we've shunted. Parks have now left. They're down at Gaydon Street and up at Mulville Road. So we've created a bit more room in our food shed. We're actually going to be recycling glass from that shed this week because I forgot to mention there's still we've got to put a roof on the glass plate, so that's still frames going up as well in July. So there could be disruption, but we hope not. And the programming and the planning should mean that there isn't disruption to the service. But experience suggesting at some point in the summer there will be something that may disrupt services, but we'll do what we can in terms of informing the public if we see something coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions? Councillor Hunt, are you okay with everything on that?
Yes, I am. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Don't think there's any vote to be had on that one. Is there just? No, thank you. Right, item 10 is F106 funds. Will this be noticed, James?
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking the allocation of some Section 106 funds for the provision of a CCTV service and associated Wi-Fi loops to serve the Ankle Bank development. So as is noted on your report on page 89, there is currently no CCTV provision in the Anklewood Bank area. The Section 106 agreement provided for the provision of this, and we're now seeking those funds from the Section 106 agreement to address that gap. For technical reasons, as at 4.3 in the report, there needs to be an upgrade to the Wi-Fi as well to facilitate the provision of the camera. And we will ensure that in installing the camera and bringing it into the council CCTV scheme, that it's managed in full compliance with our regulatory framework. So it's just a short report, members, asking for you to allocate those funds of just over 11,000, so £11,170 from the Section 106 for Anklewood to enable us to bring forward that CCTV provision and associated facility.
Councillor Reaver?
Thank you. I appreciate it's part of the section 106. I'd like to propose that, yes, we approve this. But I suppose the question for me comes to, is there any particular reason why it was felt that CCTV was needed over there? Has there been a particular problem or expectation of problem?
I don't believe that I'm aware of a particular problem. It's just considered and was at the time of the development that we're bringing forward a significant scheme with significant public areas where we would ordinarily expect some coverage, and this will fill that gap.
Yeah.
So it's just following the process that we would for other spaces, and it came forward as a result of the development.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as I say, I propose that we go with that. I suppose my only comment is it's a sad state of affairs then that the surveillance of people in this country is so huge, and that I understand why it is, but it's a pity that we find ourselves in a position where this becomes a sort of a standard approach, really.
Chair, it was also part of the package to try and link the Anchorwood development with the town centre, which was one of the critical parts as part of the planning process.
Because the town centre antisocial behaviour spills over?
No. It was just to increase the links between the town centre and the Anchorwood development. Because if you recall, there was also a proposal for a bridge as well.
Yeah.
But it's just to make sure that it brought the two together, closer together.
Not with the bridge. Councillor Ricky Knight.
Yeah. Well, I'm no great fan of the eyeballs in the sky, but there's no denying that it has an effect on as a deterrent. So that's not the issue. I'm usually behind the curve on this, but am I right in saying that the hub for all of the CTV screens is still in Barham House? Yeah, well, anyone who's been there to have a look at that cosy little back room, I just can't imagine how many screens have they now got, sort of thing. This is a rhetorical question here, because I just hope that when we're looking at these screens in that pokey little room, that we're on top of it, as it were.
Yeah, we're careful what we do say here, Councillor Knight.
Yes,
Well,
security.
It's a public meeting, Councillor Knight, and details around the CCTV system that we operate wouldn't normally be discussed in Part A.
I wasn't one of that, but I'll take your point. I can't withdraw it. Can we wipe the
Well,
You can withdraw it.
we
Edit you out completely.
we can provide you with some detail about that after the meeting.
Yeah, well, I suppose my basic question was we have the ability to keep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so then,
Can I just ask, didn't see it on here, how many cameras are you talking about? Just one, is it?
Yeah, it's
Because don't say how many cameras, that's all.
Okay.
And where they're being located.
it's one camera, yeah.
Is the provision, was it covered under the provision of the 106 originally then? For CCTV
Yeah.
in that area?
Specific allocation within that 106 agreement for this amount of money.
And is that, can I just ask, how does that work then? Because I know you talk about upgrade, but does the 106 cover upgrade as well? Because you can assume a percentage cost of providing CCTV, but does that 106 money actually provide upgrade as well?
So the money that we've requested to bring forward from the allocation covers that upgrade facility as well to the Wi-Fi that's needed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
last
Yeah,
question.
what I was going to say was, can I ask a top question as well? Why was this not put in Part B? The reason I'm asking is we have to be careful what we're saying for the general public. This meeting's recorded, so why is this not in Part B? So then we don't have to stop and think what we're saying, and we can then discuss it properly on questions that we want to
I think the
ask.
recommendation is just for the approval of body,
Yeah.
not the discussion.
Yeah.
But I think there's still questions around it anyway, so that's why I'm asking why it wasn't brought in Part B, because that would have made more sense.
If I may, Chair, there's nothing wrong with discussing the provision of a CCTV camera for Anchorwood in Part A. Because CCTV cameras, by their nature, have to be overt rather than covert.
I know what you mean, yeah.
The question that was posed by Councillor Knight
That's
was
what I
more
mean,
to do
yeah.
with the back office systems
Yeah.
that we might employ, how many monitors, etc., staffing, etc., within the CCTV control room, and I think that should be discussed in Part B, but that's
that's what-
separate
yeah.
to this
Okay.
decision.
Okay.
I think it's good that the public know that this is being installed as well, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Extra clearance. Can we move on? There's, I think, Councillor Lever, I propose to recommend, sorry,
I'll second that.
seconded by Councillor Hunt. All those in favour of approving this money? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Item 11, North Devon Council off-street parking places. Sarah Jane again.
Thank you, Chair. So this report, provided by our parking manager, sets out some additional requirements to the off-street parking order. There's three main areas that we're seeking some amendments to. The first relates to Queen Street, Bear Street car park. Members are aware of the works that we're currently undertaking to those car parks. There's a small change to the boundary map required to include Alexandra Road, where the new access is coming in, that's coming forward and is requested as part of this report. And alongside that is a request to change the name of the Queen Street, Bear Street car park to Barnstaple Central car park. That is something that we've discussed with some key stakeholders, and particularly Bear Street businesses, and they were supportive of that change. The second item that we're asking for is related to Balmeadow car park, where the change to the OSPO requested is the introduction of a half-an-hour charge within that car park. That request has come primarily from the medical centre, and that would enable that 50 pence charge for a half-an-hour service to be included in Balmeadow. The final amendment that's set out in this report is to the Tarka car park, so that's the short stay car park facilitating or next to the leisure centre. We have had some issues with congestion around the roads directly adjacent to the Tarka car park, and so the request is to include that within the off-street parking order to enable us to enforce. What I would say is that the map that is appended to this item, so the map entitled Tarka car park, so it's the second map, Appendix B. The red outline is incorrect in that it extends beyond North Devon Council's ownership and includes some highway. So I would ask, when we're talking about the recommendation for delegated powers, to reduce that for the red outline to only include the unadopted highway in North Devon Council's ownership. So, members, just to go back to the recommendations of the report set out on page 93, I'm asking members to agree those amendments that I've just set out for you.
Okay, thank you.
I propose
Councillor Lever,
that we accept those proposals.
seconded by Councillor David Knight. Then, sorry, is there anybody got any questions?
Chair, I just want to say, with the works going on in Queen Street backwards, it really is important to get flexibility in this car park, because it's really heavily used at the moment. So the half-an-hour charge would be really welcome.
Definitely.
Not just for the surgery, but for that side of the town centre too.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Knight's recommend, Councillor Lever's recommended. We accept this. All those in favour? Anybody against? No abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman James. Item 12, titled Southview, Grattan Fleming.
I'm changing mine.
Do I need to declare an interest? I declared an interest at planning this application because I sort of knew the applicant. Or I don't think it's been dealt with. I don't think it was dealt with by the applicant previously. So do I need to declare an interest in this instance?
If you're unsure, I would do.
This isn't, so you know the owner?
I did, yes.
You
I know, I know, well, he's working next door, so I used to talk to him about that.
Is it a close
No, he ain't.
relation? Okay,
Not close.
well, in which case, I mean, if it isn't a close relationship, then it's just a case of, well, we're still worth declaring for transparency, but also it's just a case of whether you feel you can, that knowledge will influence your, will cloud your judgment, but
I'm okay with the robot house.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So this report relates to a site which we originally disposed of as a surplus asset in October 2014. And it was a small garden plot adjacent to an area of public open space which is still owned by North Devon Council. So that sale was subject to an overage clause with provision for uplift in value once it was developed. We actually reported earlier to sessions in June with regard to the overage provisions on this site, the vehicular access and parking. And members resolved at the June 23 committee that the current owner would pay £5,000 to release the overage and a sum of £50,000 for the right to create a vehicular access to the property. I refer you back to the report of June 2023, which was attached to this report. Subsequent to that, the site owner reapproached us and increased their offer of £50,000 for the access rights to £55,000, with the additional £5,000 to conclude the overage provision, bringing this to a total of £60,000. And this was on the basis of the following. The freehold title to the land hatched blue on the plan contained in the report would be included for the provision of parking for the site. This was still in council ownership and remains in council ownership now. A right of way for both pedestrians and vehicles over the land to the south, hatched blue on the plan attached. The right to undertake works on NDC retained land to enable the future owners to maintain it into perpetuity and ongoing responsibility to the future owners. The right to bring services in to the property as indicated on the plan. And work set out retained 9 car parking spaces to be carried out by the site owner at their expense. And planning permission has now been granted for the additional parking for the 4-bedroom property, which has now been virtually completed on that site. I would go back and say that an additional £12,500 in overage was also achieved on this site when it initially got the planning permission. So with that overage, which was for a period of approximately 25 years, the fact that there's now a 4-bedroom house built on the site, future overage, following the details set out in this report. So we're proposing that members approve the payment of £60,000 to release the overage, grant a right to create a vehicular access to the property with the additional defined area for car parking. Thank you.
Forgive me for what's been incredibly thick about this. I don't know what overage means. Can you explain that to me?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Well, definitely that. Definitely that.
It's referred to as overage or clawback. And when we originally went to auction with 6 properties in October 2014, they didn't have any planning permission attached to them. There was only the land as it stood, but with hope value. So we attached an overage provision to the sale so that when those sites were developed or are developed in the future, we retained a percentage of that uplift in value.
All right, okay, thank you.
Mr. Burge, you want to say?
Chair's my patch. This, I mean, I don't want to repeat what I did say. I said a couple of things about the corporate approach to selling of property at the planning committee, because I think, this was an example of really just causes problems by not doing a bit more work on it before we decide how we sell it. It was at a time when under different leadership at the council, and there was another just selling things for the sake of them, in my view. But anyway, there we are. This is now a sensible solution. It retains the access to other publicly owned land there because one day that might need development. The house is too big for the site, but this, we've now got an overage based on that value. So I'll move the recommendation, Chair. And I'd like to close the chapter fairly soon. So the sooner the works are done, the sooner the works are done for the rest of the tenants, which will be an improvement, the better.
Councillor Vasquez going to second that. All those in favour? Anybody against?
Abstain.
1 abstention. So, Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 13, I think it's,
Just flying through it this morning, Chairman, I found it.
sorry.
Hi, so hopefully this is a quick one. Also, councillors will remember that we've got a climate emergency declaration and that we're committed to having a plan to reduce our carbon emissions and to review this annually. So, the first plan was published in June 2022, and this is the second annual review. The recommendation is that you note and approve the publication, this update of the plan. And just to note, you might remember that previous versions of the plan had about 30 pages of text and then the action plan, and we've sort of inherited that from Torridge and a sort of predecessor. With the Torridge Climate Change Working Group and this council's climate action team, we've agreed that we're just going to try and cut down the amount of text that councillors have to read and what we put on the website. So there'll be a one-pager on our carbon footprint, which came to this committee in January. There'll be the action plan that's attached to this report, and then there'll be a little bit of text that will pull out the sort of the key successes from this year. So yeah, basically you've got an action plan, an updated action plan, which is much reduced. We've taken out some of the columns. It's been formatted with Nick Hallam's help to make it more readable and user friendly. I've got nothing more to say other than all of the progress, or most of it, has come from Nina's programme management reports that have already come to this committee. So hopefully there isn't anything controversial or new or unexpected in here, because you've already had a lot of that discussion within this committee. I'm very happy to take questions.
Very clear, coherent. Also, Councillor Ricky Knight, to lead member for this.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, we had a pretty robust presentation of this report at our last CAT meeting, which also discussed electrification, by the way. We had a guest speaker, Councillor Ben Bow from Planning, and that was quite interesting. But this is going to be extremely, one of the major inputs from colleagues, fellow councillors, has been about, we want data. And this is so robustly data driven that it's gratefully received by the likes of myself and our team, because it's going to be a vital ingredient when we approach the JPPC, the working groups, of which I've just found out I'm part of, right? So, and it's also great, really grateful that Donna Sibley has worked so hard on this with both councils, TDC and NGC, and that's going to be, as I say, a very important ingredient when we discuss the JPPC joint.
Good, thank
so
you.
I recommend this report and propose we accept it.
This is a very important report, this, as we all know. So any questions, any comments? I think perhaps it's not to say it's not important, but I could, it's to say it's coherent, it's well organised and it's clear.
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, Chair. I would also say that I've had a quick look at the new format. It's really good, very, very readable, which is ready for all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Knight, you prepared to?
I am proposing to say yes.
Recommendations, secondly by Councillor Lever. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Nobody against. Thank you very much. Item 14 is traffic and all.
Thank you, Jane. Member, this proposal introduces a draft car parking strategy to you. It's a framework for our car park, rather than actually going into detail about an individual part of it. So things like charges, etc., will still come back to you annually. This is just in one single strategy, setting out our approach to how we will manage our parking services going forward. So just on page 130 of your report, it sort of sets out what we will do. And then similarly, the report sets out how the strategy is set out, and it focuses on the various chapters. So, for instance, at section 5, it sets out our approach to charge and tariffs, including permits, and a variety of payment methods. So within that, it also does give you an update as to what the current provision is in terms of payments, etc. At section 6, it talks about the approach to car parking within our main towns, and then at section 7 to our coastal car parks. At section 8, importantly, it talks about our approach to the monitoring the condition of our car parks, and that is something that will be followed up with our engineers as we go forward and forms part of the recommendations within the strategy. At section 9, it talks about improved service delivery. And at section 10, as I just mentioned, it talks about those kind of key recommendations and actions, which includes thinking about our car parking provision right across the service, and will inform the asset management plan and be informed by it. So, for instance, a review in Barnstable of whether all of our car parks are service, particularly having regard to the addition of the multi-storey car parking Green Lanes, which is now under North Devon Council's ownership also. So, so a new document for us, this car parking strategy, and as I say, it is forming a framework rather than the detail which will come forward in separate reports to members of agreement going forward. There are just a small amendments that are identified in the recommendations that we would like to make to the strategy, having consulted with staff internally around ensuring that there's a small section within the report that relates to our website, and that's particularly with regards to customer focus. So making sure that the website is updated regularly for to inform our customers, to include a little bit more information in the electric vehicle chapter, which might well lead to a further strategy in itself, so that we can agree with members quite clearly what our strategy for the charging points around electric vehicles is. And then finally, an addition to go into the car parking strategy around how we manage abandoned and untaxed vehicles within our car park. But again, it's highly likely that that will come forward in a separate full council report to you. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Can I ask if ordinary, well, I won't say ordinary members, but all members, have they got, can they see this? Is it just SNR and more?
They absolutely will do, but it comes strategy as the words first.
Right, so, I mean, for their comments though, because this is quite, it's a very good report. I'd be interested to know if any other members who are not on SNR could get an early viewing of this to see if there any comments they would like to make, particularly those in the rural areas. Is that possible? For this to be sent to all members for comments?
I think, Chairman, obviously it's strategy resources obviously sort of define strategy for the council. They don't normally then go on to full council for adoptions. Obviously, normally it's this committee that just defines that. I mean, certainly members can access it on these reports, but also we can circulate it to wider members. But obviously you're adopting it today with obviously those minor amendments. Obviously, if then further amendments came back from consultation, you would need to potentially bring it back again for adoption. So that, in a sense, delays that framework being adopted.
No, I get that, but for information purposes then.
Certainly, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
So I missed who was wanting to speak. Councillor Lever and Councillor Massacre.
Yeah, thank you. I welcome the report and thank you for that, SJ. I think I shouldn't be calling you SJ. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Anyway,
We're gonna miss out on this.
Anyway, let's start undigging that hole I've got myself into. So, for goodness sakes, I'm trying to get some sense on this. I think one of the questions for me as representing Newport is that inevitably parking is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, on-street parking, but also particularly with Congram's Close. And I know that there are residents there that there have been quite a lot of difficulties around residents parking for people who've had longer term permits and some signage and some stuff like that. So without going into the huge detail at this point, I would just like to raise the question about how we meet the residential parking needs of our urban residents as well, and just to make sure that that is considered with care, I think.
So, yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Councillor Lever, this is the framework, but
Yeah.
absolutely, and within that, it talks about a quarterly review of permits. And so that is absolutely something that we can consider, but would be outside of this report is the framework. Individual adjustments to permits is considered within here.
Yeah.
But we would bring it forward separately.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Muscat.
Thank you for your report. I just wanted to, I have raised it before, but I do have some concerns about the coastal car parks, the charges. I know that we obviously want to make some money out of our tourists. In Croyd car park in particular, which is a very small car park in the centre of the village, and actually I would argue is used as much by people that work in the village as it is by tourists, and I know that they are really struggling with the charging, and it leads to parking in residential areas, which then has a knock-on effect on everyone else. I know I have raised it before, but it would be really good to have some sort of. And I can't speak for Ilfracombe, Morthoe. I parked in Morthoe car park recently, and that did seem to be predominantly visitors. I can't speak for the residents there, but I know Croyd itself is the only place that people can park, and it does have a bit of an impact on seasonal workers and on the market, which we don't want to lose. If there's anything we can do to mitigate that, would be great.
Yes, so within the framework, it's fairly sort of unstructured when it talks about coastal car parks. It says that we'll continue reviewing what is the approach. So I think Councillor Maskell, that's when members agreed their approach to charging this year, but next year when we're doing that, then that's something that we can discuss.
Thank you.
Have you got any suggestions, Councillor Maskell, positive? What can be done?
I know that obviously we do have some permits, perhaps permits for seasonal staff that some of the businesses could buy into, or
Yeah. Well, I was just going to point out that we're coming to that part of the year when we start talking about next year's charges, etc. And without wanting to set hairs running about increases or anything like that, but the mechanism that we employ is to set up a working group. We can start looking at it, and those are ideas that we can feed through members on that working group. And it's early days at the moment. After the election, we'll set it up.
Is that what's happened in previous years? There's been a specific working group on car parking charges.
We have had specific working groups on car parking charges in the past, but we've had working groups looking at the budget as a whole.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely no reason why we can't have a working group looking at car parking charges to feed into that budget.
Quite a contentious issue next year, so it might be
a
good idea to have a specific working group just on car parking charges.
Yeah.
How would that go? Be put into operation? Can we do that as soon as?
Yeah, I mean, if we get the election out of the way, and then we can start
tomorrow, won't we?
Yeah. But
Friday morning.
We can then set it up after the election, and we don't need a formal resolution of committee to set up the working group. We can do it informally, and then those results can feed into the overall discussions around the budget setting.
Councillor Maskell could be part of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Councillor David now.
I'd just like to note the Appendix A in this item about the use of cash and how it's dropped dramatically from 87% to 28%, which is interesting, and how we move forward. So perhaps part of the group, or moving forward, we can look at how that impact is, and actually collecting cash, because it costs money to collect the cash and bank the cash. So, where are we going with maybe progressing towards cashless? I don't know. Again, it is a contentious issue, but obviously if there's where those figures are going, if there's a continued trend to not much cash at all, then obviously, you know, we need to look at that. Because the trend is there already, you know, 80%, nearly 90% to dipping under 30% is a humongous drop in a very few years, actually. Thank you.
Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I just want to say, because obviously this comes into my remit as lead, really welcome this strategy, and it's actually really good to see that we have some nice policies in place now to be able to free up our parking spaces, which have been bogged by abandoned vehicles in the past. And that's a really good move, that we can just wait maybe a couple of days before removing them rather than weeks or months. But I would like to come back on Councillor Knight's point about cash. I think at the moment it's very important to keep the option to pay by cash. There are still members of our community and people who visit the area who are not comfortable using apps or even card payments in car parking machines. So although it does cost us a little bit to retain cash, I think it's something that, at least for the foreseeable future, should be kept.
Yeah, thank you. John, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I said, as members can see in the table, I say it has considerably changed since 2019 in terms of people's preferences for payment methods. But what we're not saying is we're not going to remove the option of cash. It's something we'll keep under review. It's something we keep under review when we look at the placement of car park machines, and obviously this strategy Sarah Jane has presented obviously is the framework for that. Obviously, then work will carry on with the teams as we move forward around how we replace machines, what type of payment methods are out there for people to make the payments, and that will continue moving forwards. But certainly, cash is still at 30% of our payments coming in, so it's still a considerable amount of money coming in. Yeah. We review then in terms of our costs, in terms of handling that cash. Obviously, cash coming down means that we do save money in terms of processing that cash. And I think it ties in with earlier conversations about the role of our CEOs around enforcement as well, because obviously more people paying by card and by the app means that there are obviously those flexibilities to extend parking as well. And obviously our CEOs are more customer focused in terms of helping people with their payment methods as well.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bell, first.
You speak quick.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you. I did need to declare an interest, if that's okay, just because Braunton Parish Council run their car park, and obviously they mentioned a third party. And mine was the 7-day rover permit, which sounds great. And I don't think I knew about that before I read this, and I was quite excited by that because I thought, what a brilliant thing. That doesn't seem to be well promoted. I haven't seen it plastered over the top of anything, or when you pick up your ticket. But the fact that you can get a 7-day ticket as a holiday maker in Barnstable and then just go to Linton and Lynmouth, see the goats, and then come back again. But that sounds fun. I couldn't think of what you could see in Linton, and it's a lovely place, but goats sprang to mind.
Warm candidates come in. Bring us with them.
And often they jump out at you, so they are surprising. But yeah, the point being, the 7-day permit is fantastic. Yeah, if I get on a bus, I know I can get a 7-day permit for that as a holiday maker. But I don't see that advertised well, and that seems to be a real potential draw to people.
Good point.
Chair, just thinking about the links that with the website, etc. I think then that's something we can make sure is highlighted on there as an option.
Good point, Councillor Bell. Councillor there.
Thank you, Chairman. It sounds good about having a working group for the car parking, but the reality is, it's the people who's going to be got concerns going to be on the working group, isn't it? You know what I mean? I would like, well, that's what it's true, isn't it? Because you've got one of my gentlemen down Woollopen Way who's always got concerns, and that is the lady who has. See, well, you raised it 3 times and stuff. I don't blame you neither. Anyhow, I mean, I like to see the proper strategy which you produce in there anyhow, and let members feed into it and deal with it that way. Because quite honestly with you, if you deal with it that way, the concerns they got, it can be raised and highlighted, and you can look into it. And I think that's the way to deal with it, not of a working group, because that's just going to be people who's got concerns.
I think, Chair, obviously we always have workshops with members around the budget, and obviously car park charges do form part of that consideration.
Yeah, I see that.
And obviously there's a lot of detail then within the car park discussions. I think what we're talking about here is there's some benefit of obviously having some more focused discussions around the car parks we have and the charging strategies for those car parks. But But obviously that needs to feed into that wider discussion around the budget for next year, which obviously all members will be party to.
Yeah, I don't think the intention of the working group would be to set the
Absolutely.
prices and things, they can't do that. But I think to actually find out information on car parking charges and also.
That Chairman, we'll respect that can be done anyway, because the lady got their concerns, Moulton got concerns in his car park, that something needs to be resolved through the process.
These are things that come up and discuss any initiatives as well. I think it's.
This made a point, leave it to that.
No, I was just going to say that we've got to be careful to do things at the right time, because this next year it's going to be a sort of interregnum year because of the works that are going on. The year after, when we've got our new Barnstable Central car park, which will be the main one that people still have the money for. So I think rather than just talk about 1 year, we need to talk about, and that's why it's a strategic talk rather than, so that sort of debate, because some of the other peripheral car parks may end up not being used quite so heavily. So we need to work out in our minds what the impacts will be of all that as well. So there are two working groups needed, in my view. There's one that looks at the real strategic side of things. And then obviously with the budget, we'll have a different debate there. But in Barnstable, it's going to be big change across the next 24 months, isn't it? So I think we need to bear that in mind rather than making knee-jerk decisions.
Yeah. Councillor Lane wishes to express an interest in chairing the meeting, the inaugural.
Not today, Chairman. Thank you.
Right, any more questions?
Maybe in a week's time.
Any more comments?
In a week's time?
Well, yeah, after the election, of course, you know what I mean, well, I've got somebody in mind.
The lightning.
Yeah.
Have we got someone who's got to recommend it?
I've always seen the line.
Seconded by Councillor Maskell. All those in favour of accepting the recommendation, thank you.
I come with an
Nobody
open mind.
against. Okay, item 15, procurement strategy. Simon?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to quickly pass to Councillor Walker, who's the lead member to introduce.
Yes, another strategy. I think having strategies to work things out within the council is a very good method of knowing where we are. The procurement strategy has been updated. We have brought into the Devon County Council procurement system, which will hopefully make big improvements on the way that we procure items and projects going forward. This is something that will cover all areas of our corporate plan. It won't necessarily mean that we get the cheapest items or anything like that, but we will get the best items that for the need of the particular areas of the authority. I thank Simon and his team for the work that's done on this, and I'll hand over to Simon.
Thank you. Yes. So as Councillor Walker was saying, as akin to the car parks strategy that's just gone through, this is a framework for how the council buys things, and of course, good procurement is the basis for much of what has come before us, including the award-winning, Ilfracombe Water Sports Centre. It all starts at a good procurement. Yes, so we've signed up to Devon County Council to help us with since our procurement officer left, and they have a procurement strategy which is akin to this. So we use that as a basis, and it's used across other authorities too, including Mid Devon, East Devon, Exmoor, and Dartmoor, and Plymouth, I believe. And that kind of sets out sort of key themes which we thought were relevant, and we've North Devonised, for want of a better term, to make it suit us. So yeah, the key themes being the climate emergency, being crucial for consideration in a procurement. North Devon's local economies are supporting SMEs and local suppliers. So social value, digital transformation, contract management and performance regime, value for money and benefits realization, commercializations and working efficiently, risk appetite and risk management, working with partners and being the clients of choice, which is about sort of, suppliers wanting to work with the council. Workforce skills development for the skills of, council officers and also supplier skills, and transparency and the legal framework are the other sort of main key themes that are being brought through this. But and just to highlight really what's in the report is that obviously we can't deliver all of those themes on every single procurement, and obviously it will be this is a kind of framework which officers will obviously use as a guidance from members in terms of what it would like, what you would like officers to really keep in mind when buying things, yes, so I mean that's the kind of crucial element of it, and obviously that can be considered proportionate to the contract that's being procured. But yeah, so the recommendation is to adopt this strategy. The slight error in the recommendation because it's Appendix A, not 1. But yes, any quick questions? What welcome on that?
Thank you very much, Simon. Any questions on procurement strategy? Councillor David Knight?
Yeah, it's not really a question, but it's just to know how fantastic it is to have a strategy that's in common with other councils. That sounds almost like a unified approach, doesn't it? I mean, how brilliant is that? To have something that suppliers know where they stand, and they can tie into that and actually bid for things. I think it's brilliant.
Any other comments?
Well, I have a comment that I welcome this report and its emphasis and reminder of our stated objectives with the global action. In a environmental emergency we're in, and it reminds us once again that top of our priorities is procurement, which is sustainable. So thanks for putting that one right at the front. Having said that, it's a great report. Thank you.
Can I just ask a practical question, reality then, because Councillor Walker alluded to this on what Councillor Vicky Nice just said. If it came down to buying something that's more expensive or something much closer to home, who would decide that? Who makes that decision?
So so normally it would be so the award criteria that's set is normally set by at officer level. It doesn't, so obviously that's something that can be debated whether you wish to get involved more in larger, more politically sensitive projects. But currently an award criteria would be drawn up, which would feed from this procurement strategy, which would obviously be sort of pre-procurement considerations that would be given by officers. But currently an evaluation team would set up a sort of price versus quality, and then part of that quality consideration and the price could be point.
I suppose what I was trying to say, one of our council objectives is to secure the money side and to look after the money, but we've also got the climate situation. So when those two clash, who makes the decision? So you seem to be saying there's a team or somebody officer wise who will make that decision. I don't know how it's all right having the strategy, but what happens?
Yeah, I think that is something we need to debate really, because as things have grown and we've got different priorities, the chances of that resulting in a clash when it comes to procurement is much higher now.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think we probably do need to debate how we give members oversight of that.
Yeah.
So I won't give an example of it, but there are examples across the board where we've or councils have procured something which has resulted in a saving for the council, but an unfortunate consequence of that is perhaps that the businesses aren't getting the work. And we've been on the other end of that to a certain extent in one particular procurement. So yeah, we do need to have that debate. I don't think this strategy answers that debate.
No, I think we need to debate what I was trying to say.
Yeah, but I think that's something we should have a discussion about to see how we provide that member oversight for it.
Good, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anybody propose a recommendation? Councillor Lever, seconded by Councillor Vicky Knight. Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Item 6.
Everybody happy? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting.
I transferred it today, Chairman, but next.
All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you very much. Item 16, sorry about that, Councillor Lane.
That's all right, Chairman.
That was 16.
Oh, did we do the whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. End of business. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you to the officers and
Thank you.
wish you all the best on Thursday, whichever way you're going to go.
Right. Well, probably could see them now.